In today's video, we'll be looking at a strange unsolved murder that happened in a church, another unsolved case that appears to be completely motiveless, and one of the most famous unsolved cases in modern Polish history. But before that, we want to bring you a word from our sponsor, Magellan TV. If you dig documentaries, then you're going to love Magellan TV. Magellan TV is a new streaming service that has thousands of documentaries that are ad-free, and many of them are available in 4K. They have a fantastic collection of crime and mystery documentaries. One documentary that I really enjoyed, and I think you'll like as well, is the Columbine Massacre in the Killer's Mind. It examines what possibly motivated Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold to commit one of the most infamous school shootings in history. Another documentary you can find on Magellan TV that is really fascinating is the Parachute Murder Plot. If you find bizarre criminal cases with lots of twists to be interesting, you'll really enjoy this documentary because this case is very strange. Magellan TV has so much more than crime and mystery documentaries. Magellan TV was started by filmmakers, and their producers and curators have amassed a ton of must-see documentaries in genres like science, history, and biography. Magellan TV is incredibly accessible. It can be watched anywhere at any time on your TV, laptop, or mobile device. It works with Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Google Play, and iOS, and you can even cast from your phone to your TV. Magellan TV has a special offer for criminally listed viewers. If you're one of the first 100 people to go to magellantv.com/criminally-listed, you'll get a month free. So please help support Criminally Listed and get access to thousands of great documentaries by checking out Magellan TV. Number 3. Chris Collinvitti. Chris Collinvitti was an electrical engineer. In 1984, he was working at Texas Instruments in Dallas, Texas. That same year, he met a woman named Cindy, who also worked at Texas Instruments. They got married in 1990. In the summer of 2000, Chris and Cindy moved into a quiet, middle-class neighborhood in Plano, Texas. In the fall of 2017, Chris was working for Raytheon, which is a defense contractor. But he had filed his papers to retire. On November 7, 2017, after working for 35 years, Chris was just days away from retirement. That day was a fairly typical day for the 58-year-old. He went to work, and then he picked up his cat from the vet. Chris and Cindy did not have any children, and that day, Cindy was out of town with family. They had been texting each other throughout the day. Chris went out for dinner, and he was recorded on camera at the restaurant paying his check. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. Just before 9 p.m., Chris drove to the post office to mail some bills, and then he returned home. The entire trip took him about 9 minutes. When he returned home in his 2016 Toyota Tacoma, he pulled into his garage next to his wife's vehicle. When he got out of the truck, someone opened fire on the 58-year-old electrical engineer. Multiple bullets entered Chris's body. Neighbors heard the gunshots and then saw multiple people run down an alley that was near Chris's house. Then they got into a dark-colored car and they drove away. They were recorded on a neighbor's security camera as they started to pull away. As they drove away, they turned off the headlights. The taillights were not turned on, and possibly they weren't working, but the brake lights were working. The video is grainy, but the police think the car is a Dodge Charger. Paramedics arrived at the crime scene shortly after the shots were fired, but it was too late to save Chris Collinvitti. He was pronounced dead in his garage. The police are baffled by the murder because it seems to be completely motiveless. In most murder investigations, the first suspect is the victim's current or former romantic partner. But Cindy was quickly ruled out as a suspect. Chris and Cindy had been married for 27 years, and by all accounts, they were happy. Cindy also had an airtight alibi. She was out of town at the time of the murder. But with his wife ruled out, no other persons of interest emerged. Chris did not have some type of secret life, and his lifestyle was not risky. It may have been a robbery gone wrong, but there were no signs that it was a robbery. The doors to his home were all locked, and nothing was stolen from his truck. Another possibility is that it was a case of mistaken identity. The police have not been able to rule out this theory because they've never made any arrests. Since multiple people were involved in the shooting, the police know that someone knows something, and they hope that someone comes forward with information. There is currently a reward of $28,000 for information leading to an arrest. Cindy, Chris's wife, is hoping that someone with knowledge about the murder will get in contact with the police. Every day she asks herself, who would want to murder her husband? And why did they want him dead? Number 2. Missy Bevers. Terry Bevers, who went by the name Missy, lived in Red Oak, Texas with her husband, Brandon, and their 3 daughters. In the spring of 2016, Missy was 45 years old, and she worked as a fitness instructor for a fitness company called Camp Gladiator. On the morning of April 18, 2016, Missy was supposed to run a boot camp at the Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, Texas. The boot camp was supposed to be held in the parking lot, but the weather forecast called for rain. On her Facebook page on the night of April 17th, Missy wrote, "If it's raining, we're still training." The boot camp was going to be held inside the church instead. Missy arrived at the church just after 4 a.m. When her students arrived at the church nearly an hour later, they found her bleeding to death. 911 was called, but it was too late to save the 45-year-old mother of 3. The medical examiner determined that she died from puncture wounds to the head and the chest. The police looked around the church and found evidence that an exterior door had been forced open, most likely with a screwdriver. They also found broken windows throughout the interior of the church. The police learned that the church had both exterior and interior CCTV cameras. Unfortunately, the exterior cameras were not functional, but the interior cameras were working, and they recorded something very unusual. Earlier that morning, just before Missy arrived at the church, a person wearing police riot gear is seen walking around the church. The police think that the riot gear was makeshift and not official police gear. The person is carrying what appears to be a hammer, and as they walk around the church, they smash windows with the hammer. The police said that the hammer is consistent with the wounds on Missy's body. The murder was not recorded, but the police are confident that the person wearing the riot gear is Missy's killer. Since the person is covered head to toe in riot gear, very little is known about their identity. The police are not even sure of the sex of the killer. They think it's quite possible that the killer was a woman. The police records say that the killer walks with a feminine sway. but they cannot confidently say if the killer was male or female. What the police are more confident about is the killer's height. They think that he or she is about 5'8". It's possible that he or she is 1.5 inches taller or shorter than that. The killer had one noticeable physical trait. He or she walked with a distinctive gait. They walked with their feet turned out, away from their body. It is more predominant in their right foot. The police said that the person may not walk like that all the time. They said it could have been caused by a temporary condition or an injury. Other than their approximate height and the way they walked at the time of the murder, the police do not know anything else about the killer. A short distance from the church is a gun store. They had cameras outside of the store, and shortly before the murder, they recorded a white car driving around the store's parking lot. The police believe that the car is possibly a 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima or 2010 to 2012 Infiniti G7, or it's possible it's some other make of vehicle that is similar to those cars. Also, on the back bumper, there appears to be an oval bumper sticker. The police are not sure if the car is connected to the murder, but they think it's possible. The police have not publicly speculated on a motive for the murder. However, according to their records, it's suspected that Missy was targeted and the killing wasn't a random act of violence or a robbery gone wrong. Records from a cell phone tower near the church indicate that someone, most likely the killer, was checking Missy's social media accounts to read workout schedules she had posted. The police think that the killer may have even talked to Missy over social media just before she was killed. Also, according to the data from the cell tower, it's even possible that the killer recorded the murder on their phone or took a photo of Missy's body. The police records also indicate that the killer probably smashed the windows in the church to make it look like there was a robbery, and Missy was killed when she interrupted the robbery. Nothing was taken from the church, and nothing was stolen from Missy. The staged robbery has led to further speculation that Missy was targeted. The police's first person of interest was Missy's husband, Brandon. According to the police records, at the time of the murder, Brandon and Missy were having financial and marital problems. Missy may have even been having an intimate affair with someone other than her husband. But when Missy was killed, Brandon was nearly 600 miles away in Biloxi, Mississippi. He had left the night before the murder to go on a fishing trip that he went on annually. So the police cleared him as a suspect. Another person of interest was Missy's father-in-law, Randy Bevers. Several people noticed that Randy walked in a manner that is similar to the killer's gait. Then 6 days after the murder, Randy brought a blood-stained shirt to the dry cleaners. The police got a warrant and confiscated the shirt. Randy said it was animal blood. He said that the blood got on his shirt after his dog got into a fight with another dog. The blood was tested, and it was not Missy's blood. Also, Randy had an airtight alibi. He was traveling in California, so he was cleared as a suspect as well. The police have had several other persons of interest who have popped up on their radar. For example, according to one of Missy's friends, before she went missing, she was getting creepy messages on LinkedIn. The police were aware of the messages, but it did not lead to an arrest. Another person of interest was a former police officer who walked in a manner that is similar to the way the killer walked. But he was cleared as a suspect as well. In the 3 years since the murder, the police have received over 2,000 tips and they have yet to make an arrest. Missy Bevers' family is hoping that one day soon, her case will be solved. There is currently a $50,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest. Number 1. Iwona Wieczorek. In July 2010, Iwona Wieczorek was 19 years old. She lived with her mother and stepfather in Gdansk, which is a city on the Baltic coast of Poland. On the night of July 16, 2010, Iwona went out with her best friend, Andrea, and 3 male acquaintances, Pavel, Marek, and Adrian. They started off the night by having some drinks at Pavel's grandfather's home in Sopot, which is a city that neighbors Gdansk. Then they went out to a nightclub in Sopot. Iwona and Pavel were on a pseudo date, but during the night they found that they weren't really attracted to each other. Andrea said that Iwona wasn't over her former boyfriend, a young man named Patrick. They had broken up months earlier. Just after 1 a.m., Iwona got a text message from a friend. The text message said that Patrick was partying with some girls at a different club. This soured Iwona's mood. Later on that night, Iwona and Pavel got into a fight. At about 2:50 a.m., Iwona stormed out of the club alone. It's unclear where she went after she left the club. One possibility is that she went to the club where Patrick was hanging out. If she did go, she was not recorded on the club's CCTV cameras. Nevertheless, at some point shortly after leaving the club, she started to walk on the promenade along the Baltic Sea towards her home. Her home was nearly 4 miles from the club. According to Google Maps, it should have taken her about 1 hour and 15 minutes to walk home if she stayed on the promenade. Between 3 and 4 o'clock, she called 5 friends. This included Andrea and Pavel. She made her last call just after 4 a.m. to Andrea. Iwona did not want to go home to her apartment because she was drunk and her mother and stepfather were home. Andrea lived in the same apartment building and her parents were away, so Iwona was going to stay with her. A couple minutes after the phone call, Andrea, who lived on the ground floor of the apartment, sent Iwona a text message to say that she had left the keys on the balcony. Andrea saw that Iwona did not read the text message. She knew that Iwona's phone was dying, so she didn't think anything of it. Iwona was recorded on camera walking on the seaside promenade about 1.5 miles from her home at 4:12 a.m. It's clear from the video that her high heel shoes were hurting her feet because she was carrying them and she was walking barefoot. A man is seen walking behind her. He is wearing plaid and he is carrying a towel. This footage is the last confirmed sighting of 19-year-old Iwona Wieczorek. She never made it home and she has never been seen again. There are several theories as to what happened to Iwona. One is that she had an accident and died. Since she was intoxicated and walking along the promenade, she may have fallen into the sea and drowned, and her body just hasn't been found. Another possibility is that Iwona was a victim of foul play. There are several theories about who could have been responsible for Iwona's disappearance. One theory is that the man who is following her and carrying the towel is the person responsible. He has never been identified. Some people think it's suspicious that he's never come forward and talked to the police. They think it's doubtful he wouldn't know about the case because it's one of the most famous disappearances in modern Polish history. However, the police do not believe he had anything to do with her disappearance. But since he was one of the last persons to see Iwona, the police would like to talk to him because he may know something. Another theory is that Iwona's former boyfriend, Patrick, was responsible for her disappearance. Patrick was questioned by the police and he was asked where he was when Iwona went missing. He didn't say he went to a club that night. Instead, he said he was hanging out with friends on the boardwalk in Gdansk and he was home by 1 a.m. But the police were able to prove that he was not telling the truth. Several witnesses saw him at the club that night. Also, he used his cell phone several times between 3 and 4 a.m. and he was not at home when he used his phone. When Patrick was confronted about these inconsistencies, he said that he didn't remember what he was doing when Iwona went missing. He said he could have been driving around with his friends when she went missing. Patrick was asked what he did later on the day that Iwona went missing. He said that he went to a seaside village that is 45 miles north of Gdansk. He was asked who he went with. He told the police he couldn't remember. The police interviewed Patrick's friends, and all their answers were inconsistent. According to one journalist who talked to a police officer, Patrick's friends supposedly attacked Iwona a week before she went missing. Iwona's mother does not believe this, and Patrick's friends have denied it. So while Patrick was inconsistent in his statements to the police, there's no physical evidence that he was involved in Iwona's disappearance. He remains a person of interest, but he has not been charged with any crimes. Then in the fall of 2017, a private detective agency went public with their theory about what happened to Iwona. They developed their theory by watching CCTV footage from cameras along the promenade. They noticed that a cleaning company was using a garbage truck to pick up trash from cans along the promenade where Iwona was walking. They theorized that the 3 workers on the truck harassed Iwona. Something happened, and the workers either intentionally or accidentally killed Iwona. Then they put her body in the back of the truck. At some point, they strayed from their route and drove to some storm sewers where they dumped her body. The detective agency said that they have one major piece of evidence that proves their theory, and that is CCTV footage. They said that if you look closely at this still of the footage, you can see Iwona's body in the back of the truck. The 3 workers were interviewed by the police. The detective agency read their statements and pointed out that there were inconsistencies. After the detective agency went public with their theory, the cleaning company employees adamantly denied being involved in Iwona's disappearance. They said that they saw her several times along their route that morning, but they did not interact with her. There are many people who have a problem with the detective agency's theory. They point out that the 3 workers had stayed on schedule and they had returned to their base on time. So would they have had enough time to kill Iwona, drive off their route, dump her body, and get back to the base on time? Another problem is how did they drive around with a body in the back of the truck with no one on the road noticing. Finally, the biggest problem is that many people who watch the footage and look at still frames of the footage do not see Iwona's body in the back of the truck. They think it's just garbage in the back of the truck. After they went public with their theory, the detective agency sent their evidence to the prosecutor. But the prosecutor said that they did not prove that the cleaning company employees had any connection with Iwona's disappearance. So no charges were filed against the employees. Iwona's mother believes that her daughter is dead. She hopes that whoever is responsible for her disappearance or has knowledge of it will come forward and reveal the location of her body. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Hopefully you found it interesting. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos just like it. Please go to criminallylisted.com where you can suggest cases, find merch, and find out about an exclusive podcast. And please follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/criminallylisted. But that is all for today. Once again, thank you so much for watching.